Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you and welcome back again for our free online lesson. My name is Nabil Fikri bin Shaizan, an application engineer from AutoCAD Systems. So for today's topic for these free online lessons, we will talk about the Inventor gear and bearing generator. Right, so basically we're going to take a look on the design accelerator under the assembly parts of Inventor. Right, so basically we're going to take a look at the creating the bearings and the gear. Right, so we're going to take a look on what we can do with the editing for the gear. Right, so we also have the calculation for the gear and also the bearings. I'm going to do some constraint and also simulation for the movement of the gears. Right, so let's take a look on the example here. So right now, I already have the shaft created. So currently the shaft is locked and cannot be rotated, but we will make it able to move later on. So for the first thing is if you want to add a bearing, so bearing is actually part of the content center library. You can go to the assembly panel here, then you can go to the place, then you can select place from content center. Right, so I can select the place from content center from here, and then I have a few type of standard parts here, such as fasteners, mold. For this case, I'm going to take a look at the shaft part, which is bearing. So I can select the bearing. Then I have different type of bearing that I can select from here. Right, so currently it's giving me the roller bearing at the top. So if you want to see more detail, maybe you can open up for the ball bearing, right? Or maybe I have another type of roller bearing, maybe needle roller. Right, so if I want to use this, I can just double click. I can select any type of bearing that I need. And then I can just put it right over here. And then it will pop out the size selections. Right, so currently maybe I want it to be slightly larger. And then I can select OK. And it will generate the needle bearing form. Right, so that is one of the things. Right, so I can go back again. Maybe I want to have a different type of bearings. So I can just select maybe ball bearing. Maybe I would like to have a double direction thrust bearing, or maybe angular bearing, angular ball bearing. So I can just select over here. Again, just select the size that I need, and it will generate the size from. Now, if I put it right over here, so I need to manually insert it inside of my shaft here, and also this cylindrical inside area here. So my size that I have selected might be incorrect. So the easier way for you to use the bearing is to use the design accelerator. So for now, I'm just going to delete this one. So I can select the design here, and then I have the transmission from here. And then at top here, I have this bearing. So bearing here allow you to pick the item from the content center parts, and it will generate that bearing for you. So here we have the calculation. So if you need to calculate whether your bearing can withstand the stress, right? So you can put the loads, the speeds, and then you can calculate. But for now, I'm just going to take a look at the design itself. So to select a different type of bearing, you can select here, browse for bearings. So you can drop down. And then I have this a few type of bearing that I can select. But already set to angular, maybe I want double row. But maybe I want to have a cylindrical roller bearing. But for this case, let's say I'm just going to use the angular contact bearing here. And I can select any of the bearing that I have. So it will select and it will generate the list of available size that we have over here. So currently what we have at this column here, this is actually something like a filter, depend on the size. So if I were to remove the size, so then you can see we have more option from here. So if you have a type of size that you require, then you can filter out from here. But the first thing is I would like to put the bearing inside. So I'm going to select a cylindrical face. So select this face here. Then the plane. So that will be, it will be start from the back here. Right, so currently the direction is incorrect. So let me just flip the plane. And now if I proceed to select any of the bearing, then you will see that the size is actually not correct. So for that, I need to filter out from here. Now, if you see when I click at the cylindrical face, automatically it will filter out the inside diameter. So we have 17 diameter for this one. But we still have a long list of bearing that we can choose from. So for now, I'm going to select for the inside cylindrical face here. So I'm going to select from, measure, I'm going to select from here. So if you want to have more selection, I can select from here. And then I can select update. So it's going to give you from 35 to 70. But currently, this size is actually not available for this bearing. So I'm going to drop down and select different bearing. Okay, let me just, right, so let me just select, say this one, I'm going to select a single face. So currently we have two. So currently this one is slightly larger as well. So I need to find those that actually meet the size that I have. So let me just try again and find the measurement that I have. All right, so for now I have this one. So currently we have two. So we just flip. So once I'm done, I can just press OK, and it will generate the bearing from the center from here. So I can do the same with the other sides, but since it should have the same diameter, so I'm just going to copy the bearing for the other sides. Now I'm going to use the constraint or maybe join. So I'm going to use join. You just select it, right? I'm going to join at this area here. So that is the second one, and then we're going to do for the other two. So the diameter here should be different, so I'm going to generate a new one. But maybe this time I'm going to select something like a cylindrical roller. Again, I'm selecting the face and the flat face. I'm going to measure here. Oops. Let me just measure again. Right. So currently, again, it's not available for this one. So I can select a different, say this one. Right. I believe we have this one. Okay, you can do the same with the other sides, but I'm just going to leave it first. So let's take a look at the next one, which is gear. So we're going to generate a gear. So currently, if you take a look at the problem transformation here, we have three different gear. Right, so we have spur gear, worm, so bevel gear. So we're going to start with the spur gear. So once you click at the spur gear here, so again, you have the calculations. So you can input the loads for the power and the speed, and you can select the materials. So whether to see whether if your design is actually applicable for the required strength. But for now, we're just going to ignore that first. We take a look at the common here. Right, so we have two sections. One is the common, and down here is the gear. The gear, we have two gear, gear 1 and also gear 2. So this will allow you to control the number of teeth the gear and what type of the gear features that you want. Maybe you want to create a gear itself, or maybe the gear itself actually connected to different components, or maybe you just don't want to see the gear itself. Then you can select whatever. But let's take a look first at the common here. So first we have the design output. So if you drop down here, we have a different type of design output. So design output will automatically create based on the selection that you have. For example, currently center distance. So my center distance, which is actually the distance between the first shaft and the second shaft, right? So the first gear to the center of the second gear. So that is the center distance. So I cannot change because I have selected the center distance. So if I want to do automatic calculation for the number of teeth, so I can select number of teeth. So the number of teeth is become gray. So it will automatically update based on my gear ratio. For example, let's say I put around 1.5, and currently it's not yet calculate. So I need to select the calculate here, and it automatically calculates the number of teeth required based on the modules that I have from here. I can select, let's say, maybe I want to change for automatic modules. So depend on what type of selection that you want, you can just select. Now, if I click at the module here, or maybe I click at the center distance here, you can see that I still able to change the gear ratio, but for the gear one, I'm able to change the number of teeth, but I cannot change to the second of teeth. Now, if I close this one and can open up again, I should be able to change this one, both of these for the center distance. Right, so if I change the module, I'm still able to change. So currently, if I change to number of teeth, then you will see that the number of teeth is now gray. So if I change back to center distance, the second gear is being gray. Right, so if I want to have both of these, so I can select down here and I can select what type of input. So currently, I'm able to change the gear ratio. So I don't want that. I want to have a number of teeth. So I can select number of teeth. So the gear ratio is gray out, but the number of teeth is available for me to input. And then we also have this size tab here, currently set to module. I can select diameter pitch, so it will change to diameter pitch, right, based on instructions. So for now, I'm just going to select for module because I'm going to select based on the two shaft. So for the first one, to start off, I'm going to select the first gear, sorry, the first shaft, which is the smaller one here. Right. So first one is the component. Then I can select cylindrical face. So I can select the cylindrical face here, and then I need to select the planar face. Right. So I can select the planar face. So currently, I think best if I put it right over here, so it will fit around here. So if you need to change your width, you can change your width from here. It will change the value here. You can also input the value here if you want to. So for the both to be the same. So currently that is for the first gear. Then I can select for the second gear. So the component, which is this cylindrical face and the start plane. So currently I can select here, but it's automatically copy from the previous one. So I think this is the best. But my size of my gear here, you can see that it's actually already penetrating the cover here. So I'm going to change the number of teeth. So let's say the first gear should have a slightly larger, let's say around 4. And the second one will be the T, but the size is actually not connecting. So if I click calculate, so it will try to change based on the value that required, which is changing the modules. Right? So that is automatic. So sometimes if you have problem, you can just change the design inputs when you're trying to start. So currently 40 to 30 will be 2.5 module with the key ratio of 0.75. I think I'm good from here. So I'm going to click calculate and okay. Right. So I now have this gear here. So if I click, I can roll this gear here and it will roll. Now, I have have some issue here is that, so if I click at my gear here, this gear does not have a hole inside. So if I try to isolate this gear, then you can see that it's actually not connecting to the shaft here. So to connecting to the shaft, so I want to start with this one. So I'm going to make that this gear here is actually part of the shaft here. But to make that correctly, you must make sure that your shaft is actually bigger than your gear. For my case here, my gear is actually slightly larger. So let's try to do that first. I'm going to right click and I'm going to edit back the settings that we have. So the gear component through here. So I'm going to lower up a bit, let's say around 25, calculate, and slightly. So let me just change back to say around 7. Right. So 27 is slightly larger, but then I'm going to make it higher. Right. So calculate, and then I'm going to press OK. Again, this one should be features. Right. So features, it will connecting to this road. Features. So calculate. Right. So symmetrical face, I think I need to reselect back. Right. So click and I can press OK. Then you will see that this item here is changing into a gear. But we don't see a gear here because that our shaft here is actually smaller than our gear that we are selecting. So let's change the shaft. So I'm going to right click and go to edit design accelerator. So I believe it should be this one. Then I'm going to change slightly larger, let's say around 75. That should be larger. So when I press OK, now you should be able to see that the gear is actually created. So what it actually does is that it's combining both, and then it will only selecting the one that actually penetrate. Now, if I try to rotate, this one I can still rotate, but this one cannot be rotated anymore because, let me just undo back. So the reason why this one cannot be rotated anymore because the shaft is currently locked with the angle. So we just suppress the angle so this shaft can be moved. But this one is still not connecting to the shaft. So to connect with this shaft here, so I can easily do the same thing, or I can add a keyways here. Right? Or maybe I can also assemble using constraints. But for this case, I'm going to use a keyway. We already have a keyway here. So let me just edit and remove that keyway so that I can input a keyway manually. So I can add a key. And what it does is it will automatically create a holes and also the groove. So if you already have an existing, you can select existing, but for this case, I'm just going to create a new one. And the first one is the shaft groove. So select one, and then I'm going to select the face. So let's say I'm selecting from this face here. So this connector should be somewhere inside of here. So I'm going to, before that, I need to select for the hub groove first. So for the hub, we'll be starting for this face of this gear. And then the circular points should be, this will be the circular. So it will find the center point of this gear. But I also need to have it, the groove inside. So I'm going to move it inside here. Let me just move it around. And then if you want to generate the key, the shaft, the groove, so you make sure to turn this one on. So if you turn off, it will not generate that. For this case, I'm just going to press OK, and it will generate the groove and also the key. Again, I still cannot rotate, so let me just unsuppress. Okay, that is not the correct one. So this one. So it's already be able to rotate. But however, unlike before, it does not rotate for the other side. So for you to make sure that it rotates for the other side as well, if you go back to the assembly, then you can add constraint for the motion constraint. So for now, let me just readjust back to ensure that it's connecting to the side here. And then you can select constraint, then you can select motions. For this motion, I'm going to use rotate. So for this case, it should be reverse. So if I'm using belt, that may be forward, but for this case, it will be reverse. So I'm going to select reverse. To select that, I need to select the face here and also the face for here as well. Then it will automatically calculate the ratio. I can press OK. And then when I rotate, it should be rotate correctly. But sometimes the ratio might not be correct because your second gear probably not being designed correctly, because we actually create from this intersection of the shaft here. So there are a lot of missing metal from the top here. So the diameter is not correct really. So for that, let's say if I still want to proceed with this, so all I need to do is to redo the ratio number. So the ratio number here you can find back at the gear that we printed before using the design accelerator before. So the gear ratio will be 0.7. And I'm going to edit. Now the ratio here is not correct already. So if I put 0.7, so you will see that it's still not correct because the ratio is actually on the wrong gear. Let me just adjust a bit. So to quick fix, I'm going to edit back and reselect the right gear. I believe the first one I clicked this one. So I'm going to change it into this one. Can I just, so that will be first phase and the second phase, 0.7. Okay, so let's try again. Right, so it is now rotate properly. Right, so that is the first thing that you can do. Other things, maybe you would like to add something like an angles. Right, so again, I can edit the gear. You can add a helix angle, probably let's say around 15 degree examples. So I can press OK, and it will create a helix angle, something like this. So other things that you can do from here is that I can add as the second spur gear. The second one, we also have the internal here. So the internal here is something like you can create something like a planetary gear, right? So where the gear will be inside, and then we have the ring of gear. So that will be internal. So let's try to create this one here. Okay, so we have the module. So start with the first gear. So we go from here. Okay, so the first one I need it is to be slightly smaller. Say around 20 to, let's say 60. Right, so Srika is already picked, and the face here. So again, I need to swap face. Calculate. I can press OK. So I have this planetary gear here. So for this planetary gear, if I try to rotate, you will see that this is actually normally not what we want. We want this gear to rotate, and this gear will rotate alongside. So for that case is that I need to make sure that the center point of this planetary gear to be stationed at the center here. So let me just undo. So for that, let's say this is the center that I want. So I can add the axis for this gear, and this axis here, I'm going to ground it so it will not be rotated anywhere else, but I still cannot rotate. Somehow it's stuck. So what you can do here is that you can try and make it flexible. Now you should be able to rotate. Now, again, this one should be rotated, but again, this one is not connecting. So I can add another the key, or I can again make sure that this item is actually part of the shaft here. Maybe I just add a key here. All right, so start from here, and then go from here. So it will be the center. And I think this is quite good enough. So if I try to rotate, it should be rotate everything from here. So that is between two gear. What if you have the third gear? So for the third gear, you need to create another one manually, and then you need to manually combine it using the constraint tools. For example, if I go back to the design, spur gear again, right? So for this case, I need to create it manually. So I can click K, then I need to manually input here. So this is not the one. Say, no. So I need it to have the same as this one. Let's say if I would like to connect to this one. So let's just create first, and then later on I can just select no model. So we just try to constrain the face to the line. Now I don't need the smaller one, but I need the smaller one to be the exact same with this one. So I can go back and find the value for the change here, which is feature 2 is 28. The model is 2.5, 28. So I can select 28. Model is 2.5. Should have the same size, and the helix angle will be 15. Okay, so I have some issue with the unit crack. So let me just try to reduce the number of things. Okay, say around 10. So it's still cannot. So yeah, you need to change to the more suitable type of angle. So this case might be taking a while, so we're going to skip this first. We just delete. Let's take a look at the other type of design of the gear. So you also have the worm gear. So if you take a look at the worm gear here, so the selection is actually quite the same. So we have the first gear and the second gear, then you can change the number of teeth, then you can change the modules. So basically the same things that we have, let's say, a beaver gear. So we have, again, same one. So we have the common, we have the gear 1 and gear 2. Let's say if I would like to create the second one, which is around here. Then let's say can click calculate and I can press OK. So it will generate the second one, which is here, around here. So I can make some adjustment. Right, so maybe just want to make sure that the plane is actually clear. But another thing that you may notice is that if you try to create a beaver gear, we both have a cylindrical face where you have a shaft, then you make sure that the second shaft is actually perpendicular 90 degree, and only then you should be able to add the cylindrical face on that particular shaft. Right, so that is basically it. So let's try to generate one. So I can try to ensure that this beaver gear here I try to make sure that so I can try to ground it this exists. So it will not be moving around anymore. And try to make it flexible. So you should be able to move. And I would like to move this with here as well. For this case, I also want to make sure that this is actually the same shaft. So again, I can edit the shaft. This second shaft. And make sure if I would like to add another one, it needs to be slightly bigger than the gear itself. So again, I don't need the keyways, but I needed to ensure that we have a bigger shaft front here. And insert a cylinder, and the cylinder need to be bigger than the gear. So I think somewhere around 50. Let's try. Okay, it should be more than that. But so if I left it like this, then the gear will create without this blade here. So I want to have the blade as well. So I must make sure that it's bigger than the gear. Right, and then I can edit back. Just so I think right. So I need to have created earlier before I create for the other one. So we have some error with the key connector. But for that case, I'm just going to undo and say add a different type of constraint here. Maybe I do it manually using it. So say put it here. This one should have, oops, this one should have in there as well. And the print here. So I need to again ground it, so it will not be moving anywhere. But I still need it to move, so let me just turn on the flexibility. Okay, so the plane here is still not following, so let me just delete this one. So the way that you can do to make sure that this gear is rotating following the shaft here, then you can use the angle here. So I'm going to find, let's see if I can create, can I rotate? So, so it will not rotate. Okay, never mind. I think the easy way is that we can add a shaft. So we just again delete the keyways. Then I can add the keyway at the shaft instead. Right, on the design here, I can add a key. The first angle will be here, and this will be the face. And I can adjust it, make sure that it will be inside. So if I cannot adjust here, I need to rotate the reference here. So then you will be able to go inside here. I try to rotate, then you will be able to rotate everything. And if I want to, let's say, drive it around, so I can go back to the shop here. I think we have this one that we have suppressed. So I'm going to unsuppress, and I'm going to select drive. So I'm going to rotate around 360, but 10 times. Then I can select play, so it will be able. Right, so that is basically how you create a bearing and also a gear inside Inventor, and then you can basically animate it using the drive. Right, so that is all from me. So thank you everyone for joining this free online lesson. So I hope I can see you guys again for our next free online lesson. So see you again. Have a nice day and bye-bye.